actually seen the map.
I have seen it, and I think it's going to be slightly similar to our previous map.
Oh, well, you know, I'm okay with that. Sometimes these tournaments, players, I don't know if it's how the seeding process works whatsoever, but sometimes the maps we get for a newcomers tournament, in my experience, can be a little bit crazy. It's nice to have a nice forgiving map.
Well, I don't know if it's entirely forgiving. Also, this is round 4.
Yes, this is round 4 of our newcomers free-for-all tournament. I am Jalbert Man, I am with Yerand. Sometimes
Hello.
I play under NC Game Wizard, and we are doing commentary today for Varanus, Never Zero, Boat Shoe, and a guy whose name is ...
Well, they're the first to found, and they're paying 24k, which I think is about the lowest you can pay for the found that they're going for.
You know, I really like making your aluminum and your iron on the same tiles. It's a very powerful way to start as a robot.
It's a pretty powerful way to start as almost anyone who even consumes steel.
It's very true. You know, efficiency of tiles.
Now, what they're trying to do is a little bit overkill, though. I don't think you need 4 metal mines.
Yeah, that's something that robots are a little bit incentivized to do. I'm not sure what is incentivizing them to do it, but you oftentimes will see robots decide, okay, so now I've got iron, now I can make steel, what do I want to do? I want to make more steel, as much more as I possibly can.
You know, they're not making steel, though. They're just making iron and aluminium.
They're going into wind.
And, I guess they just want to stock up on aluminium for till the end of the game.
That, you know, this would be the one time I would say don't do that. And the reason is you're going to end up with 2,000, 3,000 aluminum just running, yeah, what you've already got. You don't need to stock up. Because as long as you're making steel and you need that iron input, that aluminum's coming along for free.
Yeah, that's kind of one reason not to stockpile, though, because you still probably want to keep your iron running, which means you're definitely going to get more aluminium from these tiles. Anyway, there are other players, I heard.
There are?
They're all very sciencey.
There are 3 scientists. Oshu playing the least like a scientist, but still playing pretty scientisty.
Yeah, this is interesting. I like Varanus' spot, and well, actually, all of their spots are about even. Not a huge fan of that water pump, but you know, it's going to work, especially with 3 scientists in a row. But no one's probably going to make a lot of water, so just having a steady supply of it is potentially going to be very beneficial. Even though you can't really transition the style into anything else because it wouldn't get adjacency.
I think it's really interesting that neither Boat Shoe nor Never Zero is prioritizing that aluminum. I guess Never Zero does have that low, but neither one seemed like they were specifically trying to get as close to the aluminum as possible. Though I guess you can't really do much better than what Never Zero got.
It's not too uncommon for a scientist to skip aluminium and just be greedy and rely on others to provide it for you.
You know,
which yeah, like
when
this
you've
certain
got ...
player. Yeah.
And he's got those devil tiles, and he decided he wanted 4 of them. So
yeah,
for any newer players,
he was being kind and neighborly. Which, if you have played any of the campaign or some other DLCs, that's a thing for robots in this game.
Yes,
They like to be neighborly.
They do indeed. At least I think Rennie does. I think Joji's the evil one. Might be the other way around.
The other way. I'm not sure.
They're.
I think they're both evil. One is just hiding it.
They're not even people. Anyway. So, the point is, for any newer players, so obviously I mentioned earlier, tiles where you're getting multiple resources are efficient. Yes, I'm just never going to stop shutting up about ... found. The thing is, you can usually get by if you can make your iron work with a high iron and a low aluminum, which you can see he's actually using right now as his primary source of iron and aluminum. So the other 3 claims, not bad next to his HQ, on resources, capable of being transitioned, but also maybe, just maybe, could have gotten more done if we had focused a little harder into the power and a little less hard into these superfluous steel claims. But putting a boost down, so
Yeah.
hey.
You know, I actually really like where he is at, but I don't like the path he has taken to get there.
That's a really off-world commentary thing to say right there. Is
I'm also not a fan of this boost because it's completely unprotected, and he is blessed to
be making power money.
And not getting attacked, because when you see something like that, your first instinct is to freeze it, especially with both EMP and Power Surge being available, and eyes on top of that, so you can even make sure that you can freeze these tiles.
Yeah.
And know whether they're defended or not.
One thing I really like, also Never Zero getting into a boost, making transitions, that's something people don't realize is boosts make your buildings build faster.
The black market is open for business.
Always good if you have a boosted tile and you can do something with it, to do something with it. I really like these players buying the boosts. New players don't do that. You need to buy the boosts.
Yeah, they're kind of fearless about they're just buying those boosts and not caring about protecting stuff.
And it's working.
Boat Shoe is doing something really unusual.
A scientific HQ has been
Oh no,
yes, he is.
That's a hologram.
Yes, it's even more unusual.
New building is available for auction.
Yeah, that's... I'm not entirely following the...
Well, Glass Kiln's gone now. It's...
Oh.
He's putting a patent lab up, so... Okay. This is actually... This is back in the realm of sane.
This is a little too ambitious in my opinion.
Well...
It is definitely sane, but the problem is... Chems aren't that deep.
I guess it comes down to when you're in Boat Shoe's spot, and you don't really have anything near you. You maybe rush teleportation, you maybe try and rush water engine, maybe, as a cheap alternative. It's got all this ice. You need to do something to fix this, and the patent lab is the only way you could fix an HQ that's just this broken for fuel.
But at the same time, you are on HQ level 2, and you can push for that patents. Sure. How are you going to upgrade? Where are you going to find the money for that?
Well,
because
you know,
patents don't generate money out of thin air usually.
The patent lab is
not usually.
Let's get
well, unless it's financial instruments, which doesn't make that much money.
Yeah, it's not thin air. You're taking it from your opponent's debt. It's not thin air. It has a map presence. You can point to something on the map and say, this is why I made money on financial instruments versus I made 0. So I'd say most of the time, other than paying power, you actually can't make money at the patent lab. Maybe carbon scrubbing is a move.
Kinda. I mean, carbon scrubbing reduces cost. It doesn't generate cash.
Yeah. You know, there comes a point where it's splitting hairs, though.
Well, apparently I was wrong and they actually managed to get both teleportation and upgrade to HQ level 3. And teleportation is huge on this map, especially for them. They're shipping super long distances.
Yeah, this is
might just work out.
They decided they want carbon, more carbon, which is decent enough. Going into electrolysis, that will be good for them because they won't be consuming that fuel.
Well, they won't be consuming fuel ever again, so... Unless they build off worlds.
Oh wait, no, they did not, sorry, Dot got teleportation. Oh shoot.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh!
Yeah.
I misread that completely and I am sorry.
Dude, I was sitting here waiting for these aluminum blimps to finish. I'm just watching them like, did he have so many shipping that they are still coming? But then I watched one come up out of the carbon and I realized that's not teleportation.
You know what? Then I would say that Boat Shoe is in a bit of a troublesome situation because nanotech is really nice.
Trying to move from that electrolysis to those farms, honestly, kind of a lateral move, especially with the glass that expensive. not really increasing his money.
A robotics HQ has
Yeah.
been upgraded.
Generally, all of these scientists, now that the robot just stole teleportation from them, they're all in kind of a bad spot. Because Varanus, you can see he's in sea levels of debt. Mostly on account of getting frozen like
A
twice or
scientific
3
HQ
times.
has been
So
upgraded.
let's talk about the fact that there's spies available, holograms available, network viruses, circuit overloads, mutinies. Some guy's got a dynamite, and this patent lab has not been attacked by the scientists, the people whose job is to look at the patents and go, I'm supposed to get those.
Yeah, there's all the tools that you can possibly need.
It's
This
disturbingly easy to find ways to attack this and not open up your own economy.
And it looks like most of the black market has been hitting on Varan so far.
Varanus clearly trying for a moderate move with 2 farms, 2 electrolysis reactors. You can see he's in sea level debt, and
Yeah, at this point I'm gonna say it's the right call, because the reason he's in D levels of that at this point is not because of lack of power actually. There was a geothermal plant eventually, but because he only had 3 tiles on life support. And
not using
if
the
you're
boosts.
making 1... Well, I think he was using some boosts. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
A scientific HQ has been upgraded.
But yeah, if you have 3 tiles on life support and you're making fuel, that means you're not making fuel.
Varanus did get a
If you make
boost.
food, you're not making fuel.
Varanus got the first boost, but he should have been using the 3rd or 4th boost, whatever the $6,000 one. That would have been the way for him to fix the D-level debt problem, or at least get to his next upgrade so he could fix the problem.
Yeah, and at this point, now that he's HQ level 4 and can actually cover all these markets and has access to some amazing glass, the best glass on the map, he actually might surge ahead. The only problem is he's missing out on those patents.
Yeah.
Because both shoe and double dots are just dot. I don't know. They're just taking everything that's good.
I think his name is just meant to be a thoughtful pause.
Such a
So.
wonderful plot of land.
Well, awkward as it is, I'm gonna try to call by his real name.
Okay, what is it? Is it not dot dot? Am I incorrect?
I have no idea.
Am I incorrect?
I think he's Paul on Discord.
I know we sat in on Discord and asked them to try and explain how to say your name, and I know that I've ignored the entirety of that.
I may have missed them responding it, or maybe they never responded.
So it's possible we have no idea how we're supposed to pronounce this person's name.
Congratulations.
Anyway, there's a lot of boost, there's a lot of production. Prices are nuts, but they're eventually going to crumble.
I'd like to see some optimization centers down. I mean, if chems are super expensive and you for whatever reason can't hack, get the optimization center, because that first
and make chems.
Right, that first chems optimization is expensive, but it pays for itself.
And it pays very quickly.
Right, and then once chems are really cheap, every other industry can be fully optimized, and only your imagination is
the limit.
Varanus getting into those boosts.
Speaking of optimizations, he's also getting into that optimization center by the colony, getting 30% adjacency bonus, which is just one of my favorite things ever in off-world.
Never Zero and Varanus getting into a mix-up when they really need to be focused entirely on dot dot.
Well, do they actually at this point? Well, now that he's making insane power money, maybe, but...
Varanus just made it up to 5. Right, so we're talking about Never Zero's looking at Varanus, who's at level 4, looking at dot dot, who's at level 5, and saying, I know who I want to antagonize.
But should you even antagonize? I feel like by game 4 we finally get to talk about stock, which is one of the biggest enigmas for players of honestly all levels in Off-World. Is just how do you manage the stock game? It's one of the more difficult aspects, and I think that this is not necessarily the case of how you might want to do it, because splitting, you're spending cash
Yeah.
to buy up stock in two different people.
It's the kind of thing I do when I've already cleaned up the game. You know?
Yeah, if you think that there's absolutely no way to lose and you can
The
just
black market is
waste
online.
cash,
Yeah.
because essentially this is money that Never Zero is not using to make more money. And granted, they have a lot of cash.
Optimization
They
center
have
is
an
ready.
insane amount of cash.
Time to start
Not upgrading,
improving
but-
everything.
Yeah, they're not upgrading, but
Did you
they're
think we would
making
be so
good
easy to
progress as it
hoodwink?
is. And they actually have an optimization center of their own, so and they're boosting
Let
that,
the
which
bidding
is
begin.
amazing.
I was thinking I was gonna suggest potentially to Varanus, but in this case it's Never Zero comes up with it. Boost that optimization center. Make the fact that it's day 6 not such a problem.
Sold.
I'm a little bit sad that boosts are at 30k and the EMP is at 3k. Each other. People have been far too kind to one another in this game.
I cannot even. Right.
Like you have to freeze other people.
You're right.
But back to Never Zero, so I
Yeah.
actually kind of like the idea of going after Boatshoe because they're in D-Debt, so they're probably going to be relatively cheap to pick up. But
And they will-
then they split stock and go for Varanus. Then they also upgrade, which it's hard not to upgrade when you see the button, but
It is.
I feel like they had a chance to just buy out
The
a
black
player
market
who's
is
a
open for
scientist, who maybe
business.
doesn't have the best territory, but still they're a scientist, and that might be your way to winning the game.
Now, one thing that potentially could be said about Never Zero splitting the stock like this is an aspect of Off-World that is almost entirely missed because of how little you can actually control it, is that when you're playing against humans, it is a psychological game. Sometimes there is
Scientific
advantage
HQ has
to
been
just saying,
upgraded.
look, I'm the big dog here. I have all the stock. None of you can stop me. You know, and you can demoralize your opponent into maybe not making those
The
transitions so
engineers have
quickly.
advanced our production.
There is nothing more painful than watching someone like creep towards like that 99% on a buy, and you're trying to figure out where you could make transitions, and you just realize, what's the point? And the quicker you can induce that state in your opponent, the quicker you win. So there's that. No guarantees though.
On the other hand, if you're just buying everyone's stock around you,
They might
and
team
not
up on
defending
you.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, you're kind of saying, you know what, come at me, and then they come at you, and then you're sad.
And they really need to be coming at Dot Dot here, who is in a massive cash lead, has an off-world coming up. Looks like it won't be too bad as long as he's got that
Off-world market
O2.
is assembled.
She does not,
Our
but
fortune awaits.
point remains. As long as people are making
Yeah.
it.
The off-world is not the best, but with scientists covering all these life support markets, it's probably going to work
The
out.
black market is
Uh,
online.
the only problem is it took a lot of money to build
New
it,
land
but
is
it
available
is
for
probably
option.
going to pay for itself, so it's going to be well worth it anyway.
You know, a big part of it is you get those resources back if you're making them. And he is making 2 of 3. And he's making a decent amount of each of them. So he should be able to recoup the amount that he invested into the off-world. He should be able to make just actual profit. And more importantly, since Never Zero's not actually, you know, focusing on his stock and focusing on that big, important person who he needs to take out, who's going to win the late game if someone doesn't stop him, then you can actually afford to say, all right, let's put a goon on an off-world and let's just make $36,000 every so often. Because even though that's not the best tile on the map necessarily, 601, probably the best tile on the map. Even though that's not the best tile on the map when you take into account the way you can use adjacency and the way that resource prices can fluctuate, etc., it's still a really dominant
Off-world
tile.
shipment launched.
And it's a tile that
Look
will
at
win
all
you the
the
game,
money.
especially if you're already looking like you're going to win the game. That said, while I've been talking about all of this, Varanus has apparently realized what the problem is now attempting to make it a little easier, probably for Never Zero to actually get the buy, because he's the only one who could put the money together.
The only problem is, while that was happening, Never Zero, let's say, defended Varanus' stock for him. Let's call it that.
Okay.
The black
All right.
market is open for business.
I mean, in a way, they made sure that dot dot can't get to the stock. So I guess that's better than nothing. But the problem is that it's not great anyway.
Yeah.
Because they're not using that cash to buy the robot out,
Optimization
and that's
routine
really what you have to
successful.
do at this point. And unfortunately, Varanus has some really good late game options with double optimizations.
Launch
No patterns,
affirmative.
unfortunately,
What a payout.
but some generally good scientific production and a pretty good spot in the late game.
Let's talk pleasure
They're
domes.
probably not gonna get there, though.
Pleasure domes consume 1 electricity, which is a lot. Most buildings, you know, like a steel mill, which is a lot in its own, especially if you circuit overload it, a steel mill is only 0.3. So this is 3 steel mills on its own, just chilling. And you can actually see here both Dot Dot and Varanus have gotten into a spot where they're not watching power prices, and they are running themselves dry on money as they lose money just to keep this dome on. It's potentially a little better if you don't have access to power, but I'm pretty sure... Yeah, Varanus has some power. Probably would be better for them to be watching and shutting these domes off. Maybe not having domes down there at all. Just put a solar panel down or something.
The
I
black
don't know.
market is online.
The way pleasure domes work, they generate
Successful
money
offload
based on
shipment.
the amount of habitat
Make room for the
modules
profits.
around the colony, as well
Lucky
as
rat
based
trying
on
to
the
break our
HQs that players have founded. In which case, the robots contribute nothing towards the pleasure dome. The scientists contribute the least, which I think is like $5 per HQ level.
Ouch.
So every scientist here is making like providing $25
Yeah.
towards entertainment value, which is not much.
And then they're
And in a
splitting
game
it.
like this, I would and in a game like this, I would just consider not building pleasure domes at all and just having an extra food tile, for instance, for Varanus.
So if there was just 1 dome here for anybody who's getting into the game, this would be making more money. It might even be profitable. I don't want to make a call like that,
Offload
but
shipment
when you
launched.
have 2 domes down, the idea is that all the people who live in these habitats, the entertainment demand is split between them, so the revenue is split between them.
Launch
And that means that the
affirmative.
more people that get into pleasure domes, the worse your own pleasure dome is. There's ways to deal with this.
The black
Okay,
market
there's
is
a lot of
open for
buying and
business.
selling going on in my ears right now.
Price
There's ways to
manipulations
deal
to
with
begin
this,
shortly.
including virtual reality, being an elite, that just make your domes better and will make it so that other players are disincentivized from putting a pleasure dome up because they're only going to make, say, $100 while you're making something like $250. But situation like this where power price is clearly becoming a important part of the game as it stands, these domes are a little bit of a mistake.
Well, a few things that I want to point out. So first of all, Dot Dot moved into a second off-world.
Okay.
That's a lot of
You know,
off-worlds.
got $600,000.
And that's money they have access to.
Market is online.
Unfortunately, Varanus is actually missing out on a buy because he is building an off-world of his own.
Perhaps a less
Not recognizing that if he
optimized
cancels
market
it
is
and sells down the
Our
resources, he would have
fortune
enough
awaits.
money to buy Dot Dot.
And Dot Dot not, of course, mentioning to Varanus.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a throw by Varanus
You know,
in a way.
that's something that
Because,
happens when you're good enough to make the money, but you're not necessarily good enough to judge the game, you know, and the,
Yeah,
the
it's-
greater play of the game.
It's very easy to just forget that you have money that you don't have on hand, but rather it is occupied, let's say, by a building. Like you have the money in resources that you've spent on building that off-world,
Yes.
but you have good enough production that he could have actually pushed for the buy, and he probably could have won the game, I think. Because Never Zero is kind of in a rough spot
The black market
at this
is open
point.
for business.
And would have been if Varanus had bought into Dot Dot.
Bochu doing the right thing, you know, probably not going to win the game for him, but trying, you know, putting those
Successful
boosts
offload
down.
shipment.
50,000
Make
is
room
what
for
I
the
assume he
profits.
paid for it. Probably way too expensive. But you got to try. I mean, when you're this deep,
The engineers have advanced our production.
Yeah, Boatshu unfortunately doesn't have enough advanced buildings at this point. They only have 2 optimization centers.
Really would have
They don't-
liked Boatshu getting into Water Engine. Really.
Yeah,
Once teleportation was out, I mean, it's not great for him, but you can see it's the only thing he's got. Putting these farms down on not ice is a decision I'm just gonna say no to and move on.
yeah, it's
The black market
as a
is
scientist,
online.
you obviously have your bonus where if you put a building on top of a resource, it kind of automatically provides the input resource for that building. So if you build a farm
Brandis'
of
glass kilns
water-
over here.
Yeah, with those glass kilns that are taking in the silicon from the tiles under
Our
them.
methods continue
And
to
the
improve.
same works for ice. For
Right.
scientists. So if you build farms on top of ice, like the way his reactors are actually built, they are taking the water from the ice, and this is essentially free money that he's only paying in power for,
And
which costs nothing, so it's literally free money.
he seems to know this because of his reactors, so were they steel at some point? Was this just again that early player I don't want to necessarily put something on a resource I don't use idea? I don't know.
I
don't know.
I'm honestly not sure why
Yeah.
this is happening.
I'm not, I do
Maybe
know
it was some
Boatshu.
kind of an awkward transition or something.
If Boatshu can get away with Never Zero, we might actually be back to having a game.
Yeah, and you can notice that they have their mind set on it. They're actually selling down resources. They're trying to get that critical
Optimization
number.
routine
They need to
successful.
press the big red button.
Okay.
And if they buy all that stock, they're actually going to be in a dominant position. They will have a sub with 2 off-worlds, which is and like 4, like 2/5 of another off-world. But unfortunately, they're going to start messing with stock, which I don't like it, because if they buy Never Zero, what will happen is they will get literally all of their stock, meaning they will fully defend themselves.
Right.
They will get the 3 stocks in dot dot. They will
Right.
get the 4 stocks in Baroness.
And that's just not going to happen now. Now Boatshu's going to get off a
The
launch and he's going to win.
engineers have advanced our production.
Not
Yeah,
Boatshu.
but
Dot dot.
Never
Yeah.
Zero.
Sorry.
And yeah, Never Zero kind of got away with murder here. He got all of his stock back. He got the rest of dot dot stock.
What?
And
Can't believe what I'm seeing.
he's in a great spot all of a sudden.
I genuinely would have swore that dot dot got the buy there. This has just been a game of nobody being able to to see what's going on in front of their own eyes. To be honest.
Well, I don't blame them though, because when you start playing off-world, so much attention is taken by just making money, optimizing your production, just trying to reach the late game. And it's very commendable that all of these players, I think literally every single one of them has actually done a great job doing that.
Oh yeah, strong founds, strong founds.
Especially, I did not talk about it at the time, but Varans even was running Hackery, which warms my heart. And he was doing it well on top of that, which is extra nice.
Never Zero running his hacker array like I do, which is not.
Yeah, you know, there's the good way to run the Hackery, and then there's the other way, which is when you build it and then it sits there forever and you don't do anything about it.
And that comes back to the moral victory. You have to believe for you to go into that hacker array that you're actually going to be able to find somewhere to make money on it.
The black market
Otherwise,
is open for
it's
business.
mostly good for surplusing. You know, the thing a lot of people don't realize about hacker arrays. Oh, sorry, you could go. We can get...
No, go ahead.
Okay, the thing a lot of people don't realize about hacker arrays is you can never lose with a surplus as long as you are doing it for a reason. You can lose with a short.
You'll get all the money.
No, Never Zero wins. That's very good game for Never Zero. Not how I would have expected this one to go.
I am honestly shocked by this a little bit, because I thought for sure dot dot after they managed to
They had everything going for them.
deal with Varanus,
Yeah.
they had it, but you know, just scientific territory, just let's optimize. Let's make billions of cash and let's buy everyone's stock.
Good game, never
Impressively.
zero. So, yeah, hacker erase. Just real quick before we get off this map, just as a thing. So your opponents have a stockpile and you short something, you lose your money. Your opponents have a stockpile and you surplus it, they sell down that stockpile because they don't want to lose their money. Now it's like $1. You know, you won with that surplus because you were doing it presumably for a reason, because you needed to make that resource cheap, or you were just trying to chip away at your opponent's money. And there's actually nothing they can do there. They either have to transition, or they have to just eat the price drop, or they could just hold on to the resource and try and manufacture it into something else. But at the end of the day, you can't lose on a surplus as long as you have a goal in mind when you surplus it. And they are so cheap and so fast that if you can't find something to short, sometimes it could be a little better to just say, you know what? Screw it. Whatever your opponent's making money in, nah, it's not money anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely if you find yourself in a position when you can't quite find a market to exploit the shortage, then just instead of the building just sitting there, just like surplus something.
Yeah, anything at all,
Not
except for what you're making.
Huge benefit though.
No.
And yeah, definitely don't surplus what you're making.
Something newer players will try is they will attempt to surplus their way out of, say, a power problem. I've done this. You know, I've not successfully done it because it doesn't work. But, you know, you try and take something you're demanding, and you're demanding a lot of it, and you say, well, just hit the surplus button a bunch of times, and maybe it won't be a problem, and it's still a problem. You can't fight the map. I think Zoltar once pointed this out. You need to do something where he implied you need to work with the map. You need to find out what the demand of the map is. You need to try and use your hacker array to speed that up. You can't fight the tide. But surpluses are great. That's what I have to say.
I prefer shortages though.
Well, yeah, everybody. It's a game about making money.